Welcome to the Dream Big Summit, creating a better life for yourself and the planet. And today I have an outrageous guest, and I hope you're all ready for being taken off planet to another dimension. Because Bridget Nielsen, here, author, YouTube blogger on the subject and taking people around the world to sacred sites, consciousness evolution adventures. And you will see her in a minute. The moment she speaks, you'll see her, a gorgeous being, intergalactic, actually that's her title, really, intergalactarian, is here to bridge ourselves, this human species, into a new era of interdimensional and hybridized humans. That's her experience. She is a healer. She has a ton of clients, and when they started coming to her with these memories, or these memories started arising when they started having sessions with her, these other dimensional things became closer to consciousness, and that's what she's doing. She brings people's awareness into the lucid dream, the awakening world, the multidimensional awareness. Totally down my alley. I am so stoked, and we will talk about things I have probably never shared publicly. I have in seminars, but I don't write about it because it is a totally different aspect of life. So here we are, hybridization of humans and ET contact, lucid dreaming and spiritual awakening. Bridget, thank you very much for being here. Your YouTubes are so astounding. I love your interviews across the planet, and you're just about to leave on all these adventure tours that you're taking people on. Can you tell us what you're about to do and where you're going in the next month?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. You're amazing. That was a great introduction. I am about to venture off to Glastonbury, England, to connect in with like magic, your divine expression, all those kinds of things. And then in Amsterdam, I'm doing a more focused like ET kind of gathering there. And then in Barcelona, I'm doing the UFOlogy World Congress. So I'm speaking at that. So going around Europe for the next one.
We are lucky to have you here today with us. And of course, you're getting to these places and you're well known. I am really thrilled to have you here. So tell us a little bit about how you got to discover this interdimensional connection that you said in a private pre-interview, you said 30% of humans is where you're guessing have contact. Many of them don't know it. And I will maybe hopefully share a little part where I didn't know it. I did know it, but I had to use hypnosis to retrieve some information. So tell me about what you have found with people.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the thing of our time. You know, we're going through this spiritual awakening and we're going through this ascension. And when we ascend, we're going to like look up as our ancestors and like the people that came before us did and find that there's something else out there. And people are having experiences, and that's part of what our soul's contract and soul's yearning is for this reconnection. And so that can come through dream time, that can come through all different kinds of experiences. Missing time is for you, and it's like people are having this as to show themselves that there's something else going on. So it's starting to brew.
Okay, so, I mean, for a lot of listeners that may sound believable and trustworthy. However, we'd like to have some proof. How do you know that that is really happening?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, maybe millions at this point, of corroborating stories around the world of people experiencing the same things, having the same stories, and that was even pre-internet. So right before like some of these things started coming up in me, people were contacting me and the information wasn't out yet. And so it's not like one of those things that people read or saw in a movie. It's something that's authentically coming forward. And as far as evidence, there is evidence. It's just been a bit hidden from us, you know.
Okay, so let's talk about what people came forward to you first, and then talk about the where we can find the proof in the pudding that we have interdimensional contact going on with ETs currently. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
So what did people come forward with?
They came forward with lots of different things, such as just abduction, which is classic. And I think we could say that that's like pretty standard now. People know that actually did happen. But the bigger thing was through connections with hybrid children. So it's like there's the abductions, but then what did they do with the genetic material? Well, they made kids. And so these people around the world are like, I'm seeing my, alien child like in my dreams, or like I'm having these deep, emotional reconnections to these beings that, say could be their children, as well as galactic counterparts, galactic other lives that they have on other planets. So much of like the past life thing is, taken to Earth, but really there's future lives, which is all now, but that is really a critical part of our assistance here on Earth right now.
Yes. So I think a lot of people will be going like dropping their jaws saying, what? People have genetic materials taken from them into where do they go? And where do those kids grow up?
They're growing up primarily on spaceships, which sounds crazy, or like other planets sometimes, but for the most part it is spaceships. I mean, there's been genetic programs going on, which is what created humans in the first place. So we're used to this in a way, like in our kind of different, our story of humanity. So as this has gone on, it's happening right now too. And this is a very critical time where we're pre-genetic modification, where we haven't thrown ourselves off too much genetically.
And as a matter of fact, I mean, I'm totally on board with you. I have personal experiences. I have had tons of people who've talked to me. I've had people who've, proof. There was this guy I knew, his mother was abducted and he was abducted. Well, decades later, he ran into a guy who said, oh, which town are you from? And he said, oh, I was there at that time. Yeah, well, I was there and visiting that town. And he said, oh, my mom got abducted. And he met a guy who saw this light come down into that village at that time period where his mom had got abducted. She actually had a physical deposit in her head, which they found with x-rays. However, now this is my question to you. How much do you think, well, and I have my own answer, but I want to ask you, how much do you think, and maybe it's a mixture, is it our own government doing it?
It's an interesting question. I mean, they're definitely cooperating. Like, it's like, they're in cahoots for sure. So it is, there's many different programs too. So it gets really crazy because the thing that we're coming with is it's deeply buried in our subconscious. There's a lot of different tools and technologies that have made us forget on a benevolent side and also on a malevolent side. So we're like digging through the muck, trying to see what's going on. And so some is government and some isn't government.
Right.
And there's a mixture where they overlap too.
Right. And I believe that why have we had the aliens appearances recently so much in the last 50 years is because we are pre-genetically, we will modify ourselves. We will become cyborgs, I believe, on this planet, and will do damage to our DNA and will not be retrievable, and they're coming pre-event. I mean, I get goosebumps about it. Tell me, first of all, a couple stories, maybe your own, maybe a story of your client where you can demonstrate clearly how something has happened that is with enough proof in the pudding to where it becomes a believable story, where it's not like, yeah, right, everybody can go like, yeah, I was abducted, it's like, duh. Tell me a story.
Yeah, good question. Okay, I'll give you my my brother's baby mama. So my brother and his girlfriend got pregnant, and they, were pregnant. And so they had this baby going on for like 4 months or something. And I have a dream. And I have a dream of her on a spaceship. This is one of the first memories I ever had. And so I was like, I don't even know what this is. So she was on a spaceship on like a bed, and they were taking out the fetus in her. Ouch. And they were putting another one in. And I was like, I'm like, okay, crazy. And so I woke up, strange, didn't really say anything about it. And about a few weeks later, I called my brother, and my brother said, yeah, the weirdest thing happened. My girlfriend went to the doctors to check up on the baby, and the doctor checked up on the baby and was like, so this baby you're saying is supposed to be like 8 weeks along, and this baby is like 2 weeks along.
What? Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, because he's like, you must have had a miscarriage and then got re-inseminated. Because the timing doesn't work. And she's like, no, I would have known if I had miscarried. And so it like physically
collaborated with you.
echoed with my my interdimensional experience.
So they put a hybridized child in. So what child came out now that the birth happened?
An awesome kid. He's like playing chess, and he's like 4 years old, and I mean, he's a very, very bright, intuitive, social light being, as much as many of these kids are. So it might not have been a different fetus. It might have just been taken out and altered, or who knows how it went, but there's definitely stuff that happened. So that's one experience that was physical and interdimensionally meeting.
Yeah. At this point, I think I would love to share a story where I have proof. Don and I were on our way to record the Living from Vision audio tracks down in Ashland with Dr. Rod Newton, who's also here on this panel. And on the way down, we were traveling from Seattle through Tacoma to other cities and then down to Ashland. The trip should have taken us 8 hours. We stopped in 5 to call my ex-husband. We said hello, goodbye, and it was around in the afternoon, late-ish, maybe 4:30ish or so. Can't remember exactly, but we drive through and past what would have been Tacoma. We've been driving, and suddenly Don and I turn to each other and say, do you think what I'm thinking? And we are pretty telepathic, and we're like, both, Don goes like we just got picked up by UFO and have been dropped off again. And I'm like going, that's exactly the thought I had. So just that we had the same thought. So we're like, where are we? How long have we been driving? It felt like we'd gone into a stupor, but you do under drive, And then we're like, well, I didn't see the Tacoma Dome, where Don always looks to see who's playing. We didn't see the Olympia State Building, which is lit up in the evenings. And we stopped at the next gas station and we said, where are we? And we were 30 miles down the road. Now, on the clock, we'd been driving 2.5 hours. So we're like, did our clocks mess up? Did we misread the timing? Is our brain playing tricks with us? We called my ex-husband again and we said, how long ago did we talk to you? And he said, about what would be 2.5 hours. And we said, it's impossible. We've been driving on the highway. This is 1990-ish one, 60 miles an hour. Back then, that's what the speed limit was. 30 miles down the road should have taken us 30 minutes. We've been gone for 2.5 hours. Impossible. So we have validation from point A to point B, took 2.5 hours. We were gone, but we physically only traversed 30 miles. And we both came back with that sense of what happened. And so we did a hypnosis session, and needless to say, we found out, I had no recollection. It was seamless. If we hadn't both had that, whoa, something just happened, we wouldn't have ever known. So we did a hypnosis session. And I don't want to make this into my story here, but essentially they said, yes, you're going to be inseminated by this and this person, and we altered your DNA, and that's what's just going to be happening. And they were like, well, you know what? That guy is far away. He showed up 2 months later at our doorstep and stayed with us and had a dream that he had gotten me pregnant and he had to marry me. And I'm like going, look, I'm going to tell you about my abduction experience. And if you have this dream, we can also not play. We can just, like, you stay 3 meters away or 3 feet away from me always, and nothing will happen. And we did that consciously. And because he'd been picked up a lot by UFOs and dropped off hundreds of kilometers away, so he was a candidate that was probably altered already. So they wanted to, I don't know what, I mean, Don had had a vasectomy at that time already, so we weren't going to get pregnant. So I think they were looking for a match to create a hybrid of some kind. So that's just a foolproof story. Back over to you. Tell us another story if you want to, or anything you feel is relevant about this.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I love, thank you for sharing that, because it's just...
You're the person.
It's great. Yeah, another story, a good one that I guess brings significance to this whole idea is that contact will, occur on Earth, like physically.
Yeah.
And it'll occur in these certain spots that have a higher energy first, to certain people that are ready to receive it first, which will then be the 100th monkey to make the rest of the collective like available to it. So there's going to be the people that are kind of like the testes of this. And so I lived in Sedona for the past 5 years. And at one contact meditation, which meditations are good, but usually they don't like blast me out of the earth. But in this case it did. And I had like a full sober DMT trip, experiencing everything simultaneously, experiencing contact in Sedona, experiencing contact in Utah, in all these different sacred sites, the landing, the ETs, my higher connection. And I say all that just to say that this is happening, and it is happening like right now. We can feel it if we tune into its simultaneous nature.
So if we tune in is your keyword. I mean, when we drove down that road, we had no intention of tuning in or being picked up or anything. It just happened to us. And I think they have certain targets on Earth. And do you think that where do they live? Are they physically vibrating like we? What's your take on it?
They would be quasi-physical. So it's one of those things that time, 100 years for us is like more of a blink of an eye for them as they're assisting us in this process. Some of them are on spaceships because it doesn't seem like that much of a time. They can just kind of be there assisting, and they are our galactic family, and so thus they want to help us in this process. And so they're happy to just be beaming and waking us up. And there are particular targets, like you said, of specific people. And it's like, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, we're participating in this, and it's important for us to understand this. That's why we're having this conversation. So I didn't choose it necessarily on a conscious level, nor did you.
So you just mentioned your brother having had that. My sister also had been levitated, and she was fighting this sensation of being transported. And I've had these visions being observed, especially the sexual reproduction. So I've had this theory that one of these species groups actually messed up their own. And I always thought, one of my private theories is that our human ancestors in the future, progenies, are going to mess themselves up genetically so much so that they need to come back to catch back their own genetic material. This is one of my theories.
And did you just come up with that on your own?
Yeah. I have a lot of that type of awareness and dreams and who I've been and what I've done. So I'm pretty sure of that one. Why? I'm just saying because that's, well, one, exactly what I've gotten. And then really?
Any other information that like anyone else is putting out on the subject, it's the exact same thing.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason why I know that is because we've been on the ships and they've told us, and they're like, hey, we need to fix this and make sure that you don't also go down this timeline.
Exactly.
So we've been told, we've been educated so that we can make better choices for ourselves.
So I want to ask you, and this is like almost off the camera, but it's going to be on camera. What's your gut level feeling about DNA manipulation?
I mean, it's one of those things, like I said, that like we've been manipulated for a really long time. So we are a product of genetic modification. So right. As far as more of it in negative ways, no. But as far as what naturally arises in our sleeping dormant genetics, that's fine with me. Like as far as
activating.
The activation of what's already here to be fully open. Absolutely.
So meaning the missing link in the monkey story becoming a hominid or Homo sapiens is what you're referring to, right? DNA manipulation at that time. Do you feel if you were having potentially, just imagine, let's play this. If you were this alien yourself and you did the DNA manipulation to create this monkey into a sentient being faster than it might have on its own, it might have taken another billion years. Do you think that was an ethically right decision, and would you do it again?
That's a good question. I mean, I have felt those times where, I am that version of myself in those other times that did do those kinds of things. For the greater evolution of kind of heightened dimensional expansion.
Right.
Yeah, for like the grand, because this whole thing is a grand experiment.
Right.
So in ways, like I feel like humanity is really benefited by going through this like third dimension, and we're at the end of it where it's like, is it going to be good or not? So it's one of those things that if it does turn out well, then it's like, yeah, good job for doing that. And then if when it goes in the bad direction, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. So it's right now we're at this precipice of being the creators that did do that on higher levels and being players in the game of going, well, let's make this end really well.
Let's create a good future ending. Yes, I absolutely love you for saying that. And I hope a lot of people are catching on to this. I've had the same thing. I've seen myself back in time. And I have a deep gut level feeling that says, I'm sorry, God. I do. And I feel that our super hyper brain that is now being created into almost like a computer dominant world, fast forward 100 years and we'll be in a different universe. Elon Musk is worried that the only way we're going to survive this time evolution that we're on is by being neuro-netted with computers. Because otherwise we're going to be, he says, cats for the next generation of robots that are going to be having their own mindset and not a mammalian mindset.
Well, and that's a really good, interesting point, because one of the things that might seem strange when people kind of look into my work is they see this girl that's like into the aliens and the stars and these interdimensional connections, and then simultaneously I'm like barefoot earth, like really deeply connected in that way. And I feel like there's an aspect of full soul expansion that is critically intertwined with the earth, with nature, with our natural selves, that is aside from technology, that will influence what the consciousness is that then becomes our technology. And so from that perspective of Elon Musk, who I love, it's one of those things that it's like, hey, there's still a value on the natural. There's value in it, and it's like the route to anti-gravity is through understanding gravity and being connected to it in a certain way. So there's something more to it.
And I believe this is why I dedicate my life to what I do. It's taking the road of consciousness rather than technology. And, down in my heart, I use technology. I communicate. I love it. I won't sit back and be one of those Quakers that sits on a buggy and horse and go, it's not going to happen. Our consciousness creates gravitational fields. Period. End of story. And that's what Edgar Mitchell, when I was speaking at the Prophets Conference, that's what Edgar Mitchell said on stage. And I professed this and said this out loud in many seminars. Our consciousness, our thoughts create gravitational spin, which creates gravitational fields. So our focus creates the accumulation of time, space, matter around it, and then creates reality. And if we go that way, we become co-creators of a hyperdimensional kind and not of the, sticks and robots and whatnot, So
absolutely. And these higher technologies too. I mean, like crystals, and even stones, like the way that we perceive technology actually is quite limited to actually, I think, what it really can be and the consciousness that's connected to it. And so I think it's just that merging. And right now we're seeing those two extremes diverging of like technology and like the return to like the primitive or something. And it's like, actually, let's like spiral them back together and then it'll be balanced.
Yeah, and of course, so how would you, what you promote when you go on these journeys with people, when you do these sacred sites events, or you take them swimming with dolphins, you take them into nature, what do you practice?
Practice presence.
Okay.
Practice presence, practice fun, practice playfulness, practice childlike wonder and like seeing the world through that lens. Practice of feeling the communion with the land, with the nature, with the sacred site, and having it teach and lead where we're going. There can be meditation, there's creativity, and I do art workshops, within it too, and different like personal dynamics and expressing yourself in new ways and finding your purpose and your mission. So there's things like that mixed into it, but really putting ourselves in these fields, like with each other in these sacred sites, that creates the flower of what is created.
Of opening to higher states of consciousness. Yeah. So is your state, are you saying that these alien contacts are, when you say semi-physical, semi-hyperdimensional, are you saying that they are beings that live at a higher frequency and therefore are like our parents, so to speak?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well,
so they are,
elaborate.
Yeah. They are living at, they are a higher dimensional being. that are like parents in the way that there are our parents, but then we also came from them. So one of the things in the starseed understanding is like that we, from a higher frequency, from a higher dimension, came down and chose to incarnate.
Right.
To assist from the higher frequency, so that when we're in the third dimension, we don't just like forget and get stuck. We're like coming from a really high level so that we can remember and reawaken. And
reawaken everybody around us, which is exactly what our work is about. I love that. So when people come to you, do you do one-on-one sessions as well?
I do. Yep.
When you do your sessions, what do people, and we're coming up on the first half, that's the free session. Can we maybe take this question into the second half? Sure. Then I would love to hear how do they remember? How do they come into the memory? What are the similarities in all the people that they remember? Yes, awesome. I want to point out your freebie that people can get when they go to your website and they sign in for your newsletter. Yeah. You offer 2 freebies. Can you tell us about them?
Yes, 2 freebies. One is a vegan healthy lunch recipe guide. So I am also like a raw chef. And again, like, raising our frequency, it's like what we put in our bodies. So I have that guide that you can like cook and figure out more like healthy ways of raising your vibration through food. Okay. So I have that healthy lunch guide. And then I also have a free download to a dolphin contact meditation to connect with kind of the alien aspect of dolphin consciousness and your connection with it.
Yes. Awesome. All free from your website. Yep. People just go sign up for your newsletter and they get these downloads. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you very much. I absolutely love talking with you. This is a subject that I think is going to become the norm as we go on in the next 50 years. But like you said, it's still very dormant in the subconscious of many people. And I'd love to find out what they find with you in their sessions. Next session, thank you very much for doing this free part of the interview here for the Dream Big Summit, Creating a Better Life for Yourself and the Planet.